Want to give a quick shout out to all my patrons. Thank you so much for all of the continued support. And I am done. Okay, so I just finished listening to Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is a standalone book by the author of The Martian. And I want to give you my unedited review upon finishing this book, which was just right now. So I love this thing. This is a 5 out of 5 stars for me. Not the easiest 5 out of 5 stars. There was portions of this book where I was quite confident that I would not be giving it that score. But yeah, by the end of this thing, I can't help but walk away from this thing with immensely happy feelings and the sense that I really did love what I read. Just really wonderful stuff. Now, I'm going to really struggle to do this review. And if you have read this book, you might understand why, because I do non-spoilers. And there are major things that are critical to this story that get spoiled relatively early on in the story, but not early enough for me to tell you what they are. Now, I suspect that a lot of reviews will tell you the more than the basic premise of this book, which I think will actually ruin a bit of your enjoyment. I went into this book knowing nothing about it other than what the cover art looked like. And the cover art, which you saw just a minute ago on the right there, it was just a guy in a space suit floating out in space. That's all I knew. And I think that's a little light on what to know. I'm a little bit extreme on that end. But I would hesitate to watching or reading any reviews on this outside of what I'm going to tell you, because I'm going to be extremely sensitive towards your reading experience. So let me tell you the basic premise without really spoiling much, and talking about the first, couple chapters on a little bit about what the story is. So the story starts out with this guy who has amnesia, and he's in outer space, and he's trying to piece things together. And he truly has no idea why he is in space. And so he's spending a decent amount of time trying to piece it together and try to figure it out. Now, every now and then, the character has an epiphany. Like, he realizes something from his past, and the story will shift into telling that past story. This happens throughout the book. And so the story is really told in two parts. You have the present tense in space, and you have the past tense that shows things on Earth, and slowly unraveling why he is where he is. Now, ultimately, what we find out very early on in the story is that Earth is under an enormous threat, a threat that will destroy the planet if imminent action is not taken. And I don't really want to tell you what that is, but it's a major event that causes the major world powers to come together to solve the problem, and to ultimately send this man up into space. Now, it's a very long time into the story till you figure out why they've selected this high school teacher to lead a space mission. But by the end of the story, it all makes sense. Everything fits together, and it all feels really smooth. Crazy things happen up in space, and these major events that will forever sit with me and make me, extremely pleased by not just the plot, but the character interactions that we get here. And it's just great stuff. It's great from basically start to finish. It had me just totally trapped into the story, and it wouldn't let me go. Now, I say this as somebody who's not a big sci-fi fan. Now, I do enjoy some sci-fi. I love some sci-fi. But in general, I'm not nearly as big of a fan as a lot of you that are watching this, because I'm primarily a fantasy guy, and I recognize that that's what I enjoy. I've been trying to read some more lately, but this one really knocked it out of the park. But this is a hard science book, I think. Now, I'm not totally up to date on the science fiction terminology. Like, I can tell you if something is grimdark or epic or all the progression fantasy. But when it comes to sci-fi, there's I think soft sci-fi and hard sci-fi. And hard sci-fi, which I think is where it really emphasizes the science. And this one very much does. I mean, it goes into detail. It feels like I became a lot smarter. Maybe not a lot. Maybe I should have known a lot of this, but I didn't. But I learned a lot of things by reading this, because it really steps through in a way that the average person can understand. Now, it's not It's not super hand-holding you in talking like, like a young kid would be able to understand, but also it's not going too above your head where you'd have to have like a PhD to figure out what's going on. It's a nice balance where it feels earned, and intelligent enough where you can get it, but not just like over your head, which is great for somebody like me who's not a science guy. But yeah, wonderful stuff from that perspective. Now, I did have problems here, and one of my problems, I'd say my biggest one that I can talk about, is that these flashbacks, they felt like they dragged me out of the story too frequently. I personally got way more invested in the space story than I did the Earth story, and I imagine most people are going to feel the same. I would imagine almost nobody will tell you that they enjoyed the Earth story more. You may find some that say they were equally enjoyable and jumping back and forth was fine because it was whatever. They're both great. But I did a buddy read of this on my channel and my Discord, and a lot of the people were saying kind of the same thing, where every time he dragged us back to Earth, we were groaning, and it's like, I just want to know what's going on here, because the story does rely a lot on cliffhangers, especially the space side of the story, and right when you want to find out something, it drags you back out, and that's annoying. I don't like that. I hate cliffhangers. Now, I especially hate, book ending cliffhangers. Those are the worst. But even chapter ending cliffhangers, especially when you don't get to find out what happens until you read a little bit more, is annoying to say the least. And it felt like, and I don't know upon finishing this whether I still have this opinion. I'm tied between it, because on one hand, I feel like the story might have been a little bit more successful. And by successful, let me clarify that, because this book is massively successful. I mean, successful in the eyes of Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews. Let's be very clear about that. But I feel like it would have been more enjoyable to me if the story was told linearly. Now, it would have ruined the amnesia part. We would have already known why he's there. It would have, somewhat drastically changed the way the story is told. But let's get through the Earth portion, understand what's going on, and then once we get to the extremely fun part of the book and the second half of it, then we just put the pedal to the metal and we're off to the races and get to enjoy, this, neck-breaking story that is neck-breaking? Is that a thing? Whatever. Extremely intense story that will just leave you on the edge of your seat for the rest of the book. Now, there would have been problems with that, because then you would have gotten the worst stuff out first, and a lot of people might have DNF'd it. Maybe it would hurt the story overall. And that's very much a possibility. I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy that bought a camera. So what do I know? Not much. I don't even know why you guys are watching me, because I'm just as far from expert as you can be. I'm just a casual fantasy reader that happened to be picking up this book. Now, clearly, let me talk briefly about the fact that this book was designed to be a movie. I mean, what I think I heard was that the movie rights were picked up before this book even came out. The author of this is the author of The Martian, which was wildly successful, turned into an enormously successful movie. It's clearly this guy is a phenom in the sci-fi world. Now, I didn't read The Martian. I read The Martian. No, I didn't read The Martian. I read The Martian. I should edit these videos. I'm going to edit that part out. I did not read The Martian. I watched The Martian, and I enjoyed it massively. But as I'm reading this one, it felt like it improves upon The Martian in every conceivable way, and would show up on the silver screen in a perfect way. And I can't wait to watch it. I'll be, on a night one, this movie comes out. I can't wait to see how they convert this thing over, because it feels like a natural slam dunk. I would be shocked if this movie wasn't massively successful. I also want to talk about, before I forget, the audiobook experience here. It is extremely well done. Now, I'm going to, walk the tightrope here and say that while I did enjoy the audiobook narrator, he certainly was good. He's not perfect. Doesn't blow my mind like some other, Stephen Pacey kind of people would do, Michael Page, that sort of thing. But there is a portion of this book that greatly benefits you listening to this in audio. And I won't say more than that. But you lose something by reading this book in a physical format over listening to it on audio. It definitively would be a more enjoyable prospect. Now, I'm sure this book is wonderful reading it on a regular book. But if you're somebody who also listens to audiobooks, this is one of those must listens to. if that's your thing. For me, it is, and I'm super glad that I listened to everybody's advice and did the audio, because once you find out what I'm talking about, you're going to just sit back and go, oh, yeah, this is great. This is a great experience. The story wraps up in a very wonderful way, better than I could have written it, which I don't think says a lot because I'm not a writer. But it definitely left me surprised in a really good way and very satisfied that I got a wonderful ending out of this. I won't say whether the ending is, a happy ending or a sad ending or a maddening ending, but it is satisfying to me as a reader because it subverted my expectations in a really wonderful way. I can't really talk about too much more of this without spoiling too much. I will, however, talk a little bit about spoilers because I'm dying to. And so, spoiler warning, I'm now going to be talking about spoilers. And if you are watching this and you have not read the book, this is the time to go watch something else. So, everybody gone? Great, let's chat. I love so much about what I just read here. I mean, I got the sense that this book was going to be aliens-ish as we went to outer space. It felt like that was the direction things were going to go. And when I learned about the �أstrophage and how they are sucking up Earth's heat, or the sun's heat, and making the Earth rapidly cool down, and about how, global warming has actually helped us because the Earth has gotten warmer and now the Earth's rapidly losing heat and we only have a certain amount of time to solve this problem. It is so dang good. I mean, that is just a wonderful plot device. Just so much about it. And once I heard that, I was like, wow, this is what the aliens are. The aliens are these little, micro bugs that are terrifying and maybe conceivable. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a science guy, but certainly seems conceivable. And that the end of Earth could be something like an alien bug that is non-intelligent, that is just doing what, evolution has taught it to do. It's just wonderful. It puts you on the edge of your seat. It's a terrifying alien from the most, innocent looking type of being. So that is genius level. And to think that I'm going to go on this ride solving this mystery on how to solve this problem and then be hit with a buddy comedy when we meet Rocky, the most lovable, fun alien that I've ever met, who I'm very sorry. I need to apologize straight to you, Rocky. I thought for a couple chapters that you were going to turn on Grace and end up being the antagonist of this story. Look, Rocky, I'm sorry. But you're amazing. And everything about you is amazing. And I wish I had a friend like Rocky. I'd trade in a bunch of my friends for one Rocky. Sorry, friends. They don't watch this channel. That's fine. But Rocky's just like the bestest bud that you could ever imagine. And to go through this where you have this amazing world-class engineer in Rocky and the scientist in Grace, creating this power combo that is going to save not just Earth, but Rocky's homeworld as well. Put such tension into this story and their need to work together to save both of their planets was just genius level writing. I loved it. And that's the part that really destroyed me on every time we got pulled away from that Rocky story. I was pissed because I just wanted more of these best friends, these interstellar best friends. And that's just awesome. I feel like there was a lot of lacking of tension. There were two notable moments in the story where, we had the descent into 𝐿𝐴 and the problems that it had when the 𝐴strophage came back on board, and it was, they lost a lot of their fuel and they were trying to solve the problem with the whole leak. That had tension, but it was short-lived. And the end of the story when we find out the dramatic nature of Grace finding out that, the 𝐴strophage is getting eaten up, and that now he's lost all his fuel, and solving the problem, and then realizing that Rocky's screwed, and the moral dilemma that he has to go through on, does he go back a hero, or does he die and save an alien planet? was just amazing. But it did lack tension throughout. It was constantly this, let's solve problems and hold hands and sing Kumbaya and have a good time while we do it. And so I feel like we could have gotten more of these moments that really get the heart racing from earlier on in the story that would have made my enjoyability, you know, at a 5-star level throughout the story instead of having to get there at the end. But, you know, they're not the hugest criticisms in the world. But I feel like those moments could have been added to the story without sacrificing anything and would have made my enjoyment, you know, that much higher. You know, that moment of Grace doing what you know he would do because of the man that you know he is. Even though I don't know that I would make that decision. I don't know that most people would and sacrifice themselves in that way for a planet that they've never met. They only know one person from it. And sure death, you know. I like to think that maybe that I hope I would, but I don't know. That's a tough call, especially the lengths that he had to go to find Rocky again, and the uncertain nature of that was, you know, it was a powerful moment. You know, finding out at the end of the story that he has saved both planets is, you know, brought a bit of a tear to my eye. And the happy, you know, I got to feel the relief that Grace went through. I'm so happy that we, you know, I sometimes hate these wonderful, perfect endings that have the bow perfectly tied off. But I think I would have been disappointed if I got left with the uncertain nature of the destiny, not the destiny, but the conclusion of the conflict with Earth would have been dissatisfying to say the least. So to find that out, but not have Grace become that hero that he wanted to be, that he is that clearly that hero, or likely that hero, unless the world is a totally different place and they've propagandized him, which I guess now that I think about it is certainly possible. But that he's living in this cold, dark environment where, you know, he just does science all day, but, you know, does not seem as enjoyable as living on Earth. You know, was something else, you know, entirely. But, you know, to see his enjoyment in teaching these young kids, these alien kids at the end, and, you know, coming back to kind of his roots into the beginning of the story and bringing his old life into the new one was wonderful. You know, I feel like this story was set up for a sequel that will never happen. You know, it kind of left out this whole almost ham-fisted on, you know, is there alien life out? Do you think there's more alien life out there? And both of them acknowledging that there is and saying that we clearly came from the same place. And, you know, what is happening out there felt like, you know, number 2 is going to be Rocky and Grace going to find, you know, their common ancestor and what that means. But that seems like it'd be dumb, right? It seems like, why would we write that story? The story was done here. I think stories need to find out when they've, you know, stayed their welcome a little too long, and that would have certainly done it. So I'm glad that, I think I've heard that he has no intention of writing a follow-up to the story, which I think is a good thing. But it does leave you wondering, you know, about that. And I almost wish that part wasn't in. It just felt like it's teeing up a sequel that will never happen. So it didn't feel necessary because the ending was so wonderful on its own. But, you know, those are extremely tiny nitpicks. This is a great story. This is fun. I'm so glad I read it. So glad I listened to it in that format. And I can't wait to watch the movie when it comes out. So that is going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching this review. And as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons: Anna G, CJ, Doust, Darren, Gregory, Jonathan, Nathan T, Nev's Book Channel, 𝐿, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L, Sydney Baker, Tahir, Anna, Andra, Blair, Brock, Evan, Fanixan, Harry B, Joe, Kat Mick, Maria, Michael Sugarman, Sky, TW57, Wacky, and Zion. Thanks for sticking to the end of this video, and if you want to watch some more content from my channel, click over here and I've got some good videos for you. Thanks so much.